I first saw today's guest in 1995 in the summer show at the Blackpool Grand Theatre alongside Joe Pasquale, Andy Pryor and his big band, Russ Stevens, Rebecca Storm and the Blakeney twins from Neighbours. I always fancied the one on the left. Now, that was in the last of the big variety shows that ever hosted in the Grand Theatre. It was a truly incredible show, start to finish, and with Nick Thomas, John Conway and Michael Vine at the helm, I wouldn't expect anything less. I then saw Allan on the 67th Royal Variety performance just a few months later. Allan blew my mind as a performer. He then wowed the Royal show with his brilliant set, which has to have been his big break. He's since hosted TV game show Chain Letters, worked in TV shows like Copycats and many more, and took the cruise industry by storm. Allan was a star at only 10 years old, and now his own children are destined for mass stardom. Sit back, relax and enjoy. Well, don't sit back and relax and enjoy if you're in the Palette Palace and your name happens to be Bernie Flint, because all will be revealed in a couple of episodes. So sit back and enjoy listening to stories of George Martin, Neville King, Tommy Cooper, Captain Tom, Al Jolson and Mel Brooks. But most importantly, an entertainer I'm in awe of even today. Welcome to Eyes and Teeth, Allan Stewart.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you very much. How's your end? You're all right.
My end's fine.
Great. We have met once. I think it was at the Joe Pasquale play.
That's right, yes.
I think I saw you once when I was working at the Blackpool Tower in '95. Didn't you you done something in '95 in Blackpool?
Yeah, 95 was the Joe Pasquale show.
That was it.
So maybe that's the link between us, Joe Pasquale, huh?
That's why I first saw you work, and I was blown away by your talent. I remember specifically the Michael Jackson routine that was that you were doing, and just
Michael Jackson sings George Formby. Yeah.
Yes. Allan, how are you dealing with 2020? Every performer is taking it differently. They have different mindsets. They're being creative. They're keeping themselves to themselves. They're getting job. What are you doing to pass your time, to prepare for the next moment back on the stage?
It's the weirdest thing. I've got a bit of a theory about, I find myself a bit tired and a bit lethargic. My theory is that we go through our lives with this adrenaline pumping most nights that we work.
Yes.
We go pow when we get on that stage and we come up. And for 7 months now, there's been no adrenaline, just nothing happening in your body. And I think it has an effect on you, because we've been so used to it.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. How have you filled in your adrenaline, Allan? Have you come up with anything else to fill that void?
I within the first month, I came up with, just out of the blue, I was watching the Captain Tom thing, and I came up with a tribute to Captain Tom, and we did Ground Control to Captain Tom. So I recorded that, and it went off the scale on social media. We got about like 750,000 views, and eventually I put it out as a charity record. So that kept me going at the beginning and got my juices flowing a bit.
Yes.
But I've kind of the one thing that annoys me is that I haven't done more. I've kind of been in a situation when I've written a play, which I've almost finished now.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm on about the 6th, 7th draft.
Amazing.
So I keep dipping in and out of that. And I've written a song for Panto, but when you haven't got an end game, it kind of...
I know, where does it go? Yeah, we're writing these things, but where can we perform them now? When's the next stage appearance?
Exactly,
it's crazy, isn't it?
So I'm a little bit annoyed with myself, I must say, just from the point of view that I haven't done more. I should have done more.
Of course, in hindsight, it's very easy to say, isn't it? I wish I'd have started, but then we're all in this mind space where we don't know what's going on, and no one's been in this position before. And as entertainers, we're all taking it differently. It's devastating for the industry. It'd be great to see your play. It sounds like you're staying creative. I put a play on the stage just based around one of my characters, but it was really something I've never done before. And so once you've written something like that, you want it to go out there. You're ready to put it on stage. And I've halted it till next year. So, yeah, I feel your frustration.
Fair enough. We've done a couple of Zoom, because there's one other character in it. So I've done about 3 or 4 Zoom readings of it, and then gone back and written again. I just keep going back and writing. And also my director is a guy that I work in Panto with. So Andy keeps saying, no, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. So it's good. As I say, that's one thing that's come out of this, that I've managed to finish that, because I had started it long before the lockdown. But we are all in the same boat, and you can see on Facebook just how frustrated every single one of the acts are.
Yeah, I worked at the Memorial Hall in Lanark. That's a great venue, the Memorial Hall. Have you worked that?
Oh, no, I don't know that one. I don't know that room.
Okay, yeah, I did that. I did that about 6 years ago. But that's the only time I've been to your neck of the woods, really. I did do Glasgow Pavilion. That's a nice venue.
That was the very first place I ever did a pantomime, was the Pavilion, 1975.
Wow.
God, so long ago.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, well, I was born then. That goes back. I mean, you've been in the business. I'm just trying to go back to when you first started, and you were signed by George Martin, aged 10 years old. Can you tell us about Brainbeat, the song that you...
I actually started when I was 10, and that was a talent competition I went to in a famous dance hall called the Barrowland in Glasgow. So I get into the final of that, and they gave me, as a prize, they gave me a 10-week stint doing a show there, or getting up and singing about 3 or 4 numbers with the big orchestra. So I started playing with this big band, the Billy McGregor band it was called. And
incredible.
That kind of got me going. My dad sort of noticed that I had a bit of a talent. I was playing guitar at that time as well. So he started booking me into clubs.
Wow.
And even as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, I was always working 2-3 nights a week.
That's mad.
And then he kept building my name around all the Scottish clubs and social clubs. And of course, when a young boy, I looked like about 4 or something. You know, I had a soprano voice. When a kid like that comes on stage, he just blows the crowd away. They just love it. So it was a great grounding for me. But by the time I got to 15, I was writing my own songs, and I was playing drums and guitar and bass, and I was recording. I was doing one of the first playing all the instruments. So I'd record one, play the guitar, then I'd record on top the bass, then record the drums. So I was doing all that, and it took the notice of George Martin, who was obviously massive at that time with the Beatles.
Of course.
And he brought me down. So this was when I was 15, not when I was 10. So he brought me down to London, and I went to Abbey Road Studios and recorded this song called Brainbeat.
Wow.
And 2 other songs. And that eventually came out when I was 16 on the Parlophone label.
Okay.
And nothing really happened with it. But as it happened, my voice broke at the same time, and I was out of the business for 2 years. So it was... listen, it would never have been a hit, but it was the most incredible situation to be in. I really thought, this is it. I've hit it. I'm
what an experience.
One of the greatest producers in the world, and my publisher signed me up. That was Dick James. So out of the 3, Dick James, Brian Epstein, George Martin, I had 2 of them. But I never got the third one, Brian Epstein. He was too busy with the Beatles in America, sort of thing.
Right,
so
wow.
It was an incredible start off in the business for me.
Not a bad start, that. Any of your parents in the business at all, or was it...
No, they weren't.
No.
But my dad was a salesman. Although he worked in the equivalent of BT, it was in the GPO, it was called. He worked there during the day, but he was always at other businesses. He sold cars, he sold clothes, he sold anything.
He sold you in the end, didn't he? He started selling you to the clubs.
So he changed his routine and started selling me. So
brilliant.
He could get me in anywhere. He knew how to get in the door of just about anywhere. So he was my manager for a good 25, 30 years.
Brilliant. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, he sounds like a good salesman. So he done the job.
Great guy. But then again, he not only did he do the managing, he started writing stuff for me. He would make props. As far as puppets go, I used to do a whole Muppet routine. I didn't do without moving my lips, as it happens.
More puppeteering.
Back to the audience,
right?
And the puppet was over my shoulder. So he made me a Kermit, he made me a Fozzie, he made me
wow.
Miss Piggy. So he could turn his hand to anything.
He's a talented man. It's lovely to have that support from your father. Really nice to hear that.
It was great. Yeah, I did a show recently. It's a lovely little venue in London. I haven't done a cabaret room for 30 years, and it's called Zadell. It's Crazy Cox, and it's a beautiful 80-seater room. And I put this show on just one night, and I thought, I've got to make it something different. I can't just do my act. So I decided to make it as a tribute to my dad. Oh. And I just went through all the different things that happened in my career, songs that I sang back in the early days and little routines I did, and said, this was one of my dad's suggestions I should do, and built it all around him. And it was really, really successful. It was like one of those things everyone went, I didn't know that. It was great, so it was something that I might think of doing in the future in Scotland somewhere.
Yeah, take it on tour.
Show, as a tribute to him.
Definitely. Oh, that sounds so nice.
Yeah.
Oh, bless him.
Ice and Tea.
So you started to get into television, and was Hello, Good Evening and Welcome one of the first TV that you went into?
It was the first series. There's a guy called David Bell who was the light entertainment producer.
Yes.
He started off at BBC Scotland, then moved to STV, Scottish Television. And one of the very first shows he ever did was this show called Hello, Good Evening, Welcome. And he'd seen me do a couple of little guest spots on STV and decided to build a series around me. And it was me, a guy called Phil Clark, and a girl called Christine Holmes, or Christine Sparkle as she was called then. The three of us did sketches and sang and did comedy routines, and it was pretty successful. We did 4 series of that, and that really set me off into the real world of television.
Yeah, so when you come down to London Sunday night at the Palladium in 74, is that when...
Yeah, that was the biggie. Again, that my dad's got that. How he managed to get the head of the booker called Alec Fine up to Manchester. I was working in Manchester, and Alec Fine came in to see me, and I was doing really, really well in this club. And this night, it was empty. It was a wet Tuesday night, and Alec Fine sitting outside the front in the audience, and I did my spot, and it went okay, but nothing like it had normally gone. When my dad
it was busy.
That's it, it's all over. No chance now. So we drove Alec Fine back to the station, and he said, thank you. He never said a word. Never said a word to me. Got out the car, said goodbye, thank you, and we just both went home, totally and utterly depressed. Why does it always happen to me? It was one of those things. And within a week, he had booked me on a show called, I think it was Studio Star Time, and then said, I'm going to put you on Sunday night at London Palladium. So it was like, what?
Oh, that's wonderful. From you thinking you've got nothing from it, and then you get the call.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was good, and of course that changed my career overnight. That was like one of those. That was like the Freddie Starr Royal Variety moment. It just changed everything for me.
Yeah. And what did you perform on that particular spot? Do you remember?
Well, funnily enough, it was on television. It's been on twice in the last 2 or 3 months. Talking Pictures.
Oh yes, they're re-showing them, aren't they? It's brilliant to see all those shows.
Talking Pictures on a Sunday night London Palladium. So it was great to see it because I had never seen it.
Oh, you're kidding!
And it was me seeing it for the first time when they put it out about 3 months ago.
That must have been really emotional for you to see that.
It was incredible, yeah. I do know the one thing that happened in it, I opened with a song called Only You, which was the title track from an album that I had out at that time.
Right.
And then I did Basil Brush. And the problem with the Basil Brush thing was I had a routine that I did with Basil Brush, the puppet over my shoulder. And the TV people said, oh no, that's a bit blue, that you can't do that. So my dad wrote another poem for me. And just as I started to do it, I forgot it. And there's this horrible pause of about, probably felt like a minute to me. It was a few seconds.
Oh, no.
When I'm trying to remember the line. And so I kind of lost the place for about a little part of that routine.
Yes.
Then I turned round as Frank Spencer, and the place went woof.
Really?
So I pulled it back from that.
Oh, brilliant.
And then I finished off with a song called American Trilogy, which I had done my own arrangement of.
Oh, fantastic.
It was an incredible night. I mean, just to stand on that stage at that time in my life was amazing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And going blank when you're, and if it's live, was that live television?
Yeah.
That's terrible. I have had that moment, and it was only 5 years ago. And funny enough, I was holding a fox. This was this was a late night with Philip Schofield, and he was doing a 24-hour telethon thing. I was on about 2 o'clock in the morning, so I was nervous as hell because I was rehearsing for Panto, and I had this fox puppet made up. It was called the Silver Fox, and it was for Philip Schofield because I auctioned it that night on the show for them. But I learnt this. I wrote this song all about Philip Schofield being the Silver Fox, and I learnt it to a rap beat. And the producers, I gave them the music, and when I went to do it, I done my routine, which went okay for like 4 people in the audience at 2 in the morning. And this went out live on ITV. When it got to my music, they played the wrong track. It was the track that was going to come on next for the next act, and they never changed it. They never stopped it and changed it. So I, because it was the wrong music, I went blank. And bearing in mind, I've been rehearsing all week. You're exhausted during Panto rehearsals, and I'm up at 2 in the morning performing, and so I just couldn't bring it back because it was. So I kind of ended it, quite embarrassingly. But you just can't come back from it.
I feel for you.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, But luckily, there was only 5 people in the audience. You forget about the cameras, though, didn't you?
Yeah.
But you went on to do the Allan Stewart tapes after that, about 5 years after the Palladium.
Yeah, that's right. That was the next series. I was a spin-off from the Hello, Good Evening, and
wow.
The Allan Stewart tapes was, the idea was that I lived in a beautiful penthouse flat above the television studio, and my butler in that flat was Jack Douglas, who's a wonderful...
yes.
You probably remember him with Des O'Connor, and he did the Jack Pittopotamus thing where he did that thing. It was if you could see me moving, it would be funnier.
Yeah, no, I was picturing it. I can picture you doing it.
But the problem with that one was that we only got to show 4, and the ITV strike hit.
Timing.
So we started stockpiling sketches to see if we could, hopefully, when the actual day came that we couldn't do anymore, we might have enough to make a series out of it. And I think we finished up with five of the series, but it never really made the sense it was supposed to make because it all just kind of stopped being the Allan Stewart tapes.
Yes.
But they then gave me another series called Allan Stewart Show, which was in a nightclub setting.
Okay.
And that was much better for me, much easier because it was the type of room that I was used to working, a really nice cabaret room with a 10-piece band and guests on it and everything.
Oh, brilliant.
I had a wonderful story of a ventriloquist, Neville King.
Oh, love Neville.
And
yeah.
He had Grandad, remember?
Yeah.
He was a miserable old...
He was a bit drunk, wasn't he?
Miserable old bastard. And the dummy used to get really angry, and he went down into the audience, and the Grandad said, "What are you looking at? What are you looking at?" Something like that. So the guy just laughed, and the camera goes to the audience member, and the dummy's right up in the guy's face, and the dummy goes, "What are you looking at?" And he moved as if to put the head on him, and instead of missing him, he connected on the guy and cut the guy's head open.
Oh, no.
So he looked at, he saw this blood coming out of the guy's head and went, so Neville King went, "Oh my God," and dropped the dummy. So the dummy's lying on the floor now, and he goes over to the man, he said, "Are you all right?" And the man goes, yeah, I'm fine. I said, "Honestly, carry on, I'm fine. He gets his hanky out. So Neville King walks back, and as he's walking back, he says, "That's ruined my night." And the dummy from the floor says, "It's ruined my bloody night as well."
You know what? In any situation, I think Neville could get himself out of it, but I did not think that he was going to get out of this one when you were telling me. Wow.
It was great. It was very fun. I've got it on video somewhere.
They aired it, did they? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see that at one point. You kept getting guest spots as well, and you were on Go For It, another series that you were on with other impressionists.
Yeah, when David Bell, who'd started me off in Scottish television, he left and went to LWT. When he went down there, he loved team shows. And the first one he did was Go For It, which was Les Dennis, Dustin G., myself, Aidan J. Harvey.
Bobby Davro on there.
Bobby Davro, yeah. Davro did the first series, that's right.
Okay.
So that was the first one. We did 6 of that. And then the spin-off from that was after Dustin G died. The spin-off was called Copycat.
Yes.
That was Davro, Gary Wilmot, Aidan J., Johnny Moore, myself. And we did about 4 series of that.
Oh, wow.
And Hillary and Neil did the last 2 series, I think.
Brilliant. They were great shows. There was Dave Evans on some of those shows as well.
Yes, of course, Dave. I forgot about Dave. Dave was
yeah.
He was like the kind of the alternative impressionist on. Every impression he did was really off the wall. He would his comedy was just, it was surreal. Obviously where his son gets it from. But, but Dave was a wonderful actor and a lovely guy.
Yeah, I've done many cruise ships with Dave. I co-produced Re-Educating Archie, which was the play about Peter Brough and Archie Andrews, and and I signed Dave up to do Max Bygraves and Harry Seacombe, and he just brought the house down, you know. But sadly, it was his last show. It was in 2012, and it's the last thing he ever done. He lost his vocals, sadly, and you know, I mean, he could talk, but he just couldn't sing or play saxophone anymore. But no, he was a great act. You worked with some great people on those shows. But on the 15th of April 84, memorable night, but for the wrong reasons, on Her Majesty's.
As it happens, although it says that in some reports, I wasn't on that show.
Okay, all right. So, should we pretend that you were? Yes. Yes. Damn Google.
I did the next week. I was on the week after.
Oh, okay, right.
So I wasn't there, but obviously I can tell you where I could see myself sitting on the couch watching it and going to myself and going, oh my God, something's wrong. And the girl I was with said, what do you mean? I said, there's no way they would cut to the commercial break on that point. It just doesn't make sense. And then, of course, it came back, and then the news they said he had collapsed and died. So it was an incredible thing to happen on live television.
That awful, yeah. I think Jimmy Tarbuck just carried on the show, didn't he? He had no choice.
It was Les and Dustin that were actually standing at the side to come on, so they worked front of tabs while they were still working on his body at the back of the tabs.
Oh, wow. Really? Oh, terrifying. I mean, you still had to go on a week later, didn't you? And was the atmosphere okay?
It was actually, it was. But when we did, the Copycats came out a week after Tommy Cooper died, the series, and at the press conference, David Bell had said to us, now listen, everyone's going to ask you about Tommy Cooper. Just don't get involved in it. Pass over very quickly and say, yes, it's a terrible thing, but don't get involved because we don't want the television series live from that to be the only thing anybody ever talks about.
Ice and Teeth.
David Bell was one of those producers. He was a genius. You never, if there was a problem during any television show, you just go to David and say, David, I can't work this out. How am I going to do it? He say, well, dear, all you've got to do is put that over there and that there, and if you come on there, that'll be fine. And he would just solve every problem.
Yeah.
And it was him that gave that look, all those bulbs around the set. That was David Bell's design of light entertainment, and he could put a show on. He was special.
Yeah, I know his name because I watched so many variety shows from the 80s upwards, and his name was always there, wasn't it? It's David Bell and John Fisher. Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, wow. And the TV started to change in the early 90s, but I guess you went with the flow. There was no other choice, so I guess live on stage was the thing to go for, and you were a massive hit across the UK in cabaret venues. What memories do you have of those really packed out venues, Alan? You know, all the cabarets.
I was very lucky. My agent in the 70s was a guy called Jimmy Smith, who was part of London Management. And Billy Marsh signed me up for management after my dad decided to stand down and let somebody else take over. And Jimmy Smith actually booked all the big theatre clubs. So it was like Caesar's Palace in Luton, Blazers Windsor, the Birmingham.
Is it Lakeside?
All of these ones. He booked all these clubs. So I literally did every theatre club. For 3-4 years, I just go round and round and round. And when you think on it, it was a much harder life than even the ships, because the ships you go on, you're in luxury, you go out for dinner, you only work once a week and all that sort of thing. There you were bouncing off the walls all day in Manchester or Birmingham. And it was a very lonely life driving up and down the motorway. But as it happened, it was a great grounding, because these clubs were sensational bands and wonderful sound, and it was just a great way to travel around the country, because I wasn't so much a theatre man in those days, much more club oriented.
Okay, right. And you have to be like quite punchy, don't you, with the audience to keep their attention.
Much more aggressive and hit them and go down into the audience. The biggest change was that when I started doing theatres, I'd be maybe at the beginning, I'd be second top of the bill, and the top of the bill would say, right, okay, we need you to do 12 minutes here, and I say I can't do 12 minutes.
Yeah.
I do 45, I do 55. They say, well, you have to do 12. I say, well, I don't know how to do it, and that was the hardest bit of transitioning from
discipline, isn't it?
Clubs, discipline from clubs to theatres, and a lot of acts in those days just couldn't transition. They didn't know how to do it,
Sure.
and that's why the television spot was so difficult. To do anything in 4 minutes was just amazing. It took an awful lot of work to work out how to do it.
Yeah, because you spend time introducing yourself, and then you have to have an act in the middle and a great ending. But you have to do all that in 3 minutes, and so
sort of hit them. I mean, I was lucky with my London Palladium spot. I think it was about 8.5 minutes. I mean, you just don't get that. Even my Live from Her Majesties and Live from the Palladium, all these ones that I did in the late 80s, I still had 5 or 6 minutes. Now it's 2, if you're lucky.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's a big change, isn't it?
Again, it's because people's attention span's not the same. You know what it's like. You flick through stuff on Facebook, you flick stuff on YouTube. If it doesn't catch you right away, you don't watch it.
No, you just swipe left, isn't it? It's a bit like Tinder. If you're not enjoying that face or that routine, it's gone.
To the left.
Not that I've ever been on it.
Me neither.
I've only heard it in comedians' routines. Speaking of comedians, you mimic quite a lot of comedians when you were starting out, doing like Billy Connolly, Jimmy Cricket, Frank Spencer. There's not many characters like that anymore these days. And let me see if I can guess. Maybe if you still put them in now, like Michael McIntyre, Alan Carr, Sarah Millican, even.
That's the ones. That's the ones I do. I never did any political characters. I always kind of stuck to the comedy characters, and mainly because when I first started out doing comedy, which was in the very early 70s, I didn't have a voice of my own. I didn't do stand-up at all, and I just did. I'd do Frank Carson, Ken Goodwin, Charlie Williams,
all the comedians.
And I really I'll be blatant about it now. I just stole their act. I would take 4 minutes out of Frank Carson's, 4 minutes out of Charlie Williams, and I just did it verbatim. And it was storming them. It was wrong, but it took me time to realise that was working, to then move on to the next phase, which is finding my own material and my own routines for those characters.
But if you think about it, you are paying tribute to them. Like if you're doing Shirley Bassey, you're singing her song. You're doing Frank Carson, you're going to do It's a Cracker, and you're going to...
Well, I'll use that as my excuse anyway.
Yes, it's a compliment, surely.
That's the way it was, yeah.
Now, what's the process of you adding a celebrity? Do you do the voice or the material first? Obviously, if you're using their material.
I do the voice, and the way I've done it, I say most people, if you're told how to do it, is cracking the way to do it, and that is I take a sentence, the first sentence, let's say it's, hello, how are you doing, my name is Fred Blocks, and I just say it over and over and over along with the character, playing over and over and over until that kind of starts to sound like it, and then I add a bit on, until eventually I've got about a minute and a half's worth of saying exactly that they're saying it, and at some point, sometimes it's quicker than others, some point it clicks in, and once it's into your head and you know where to place the voice, then you can start putting your own words into that voice. For instance, like when I was doing the Muppets, they were easy because every single Muppet, because they were all Henson, they were all in the back of the throat. So you can get Kermit like that, and Fuzzy was in the back of the throat, and Kermit was there, and then Piggy was there. So they were all in the back of the throat. So you found them easily. Other people, I don't know. I could never ever do Ronnie Corbett. I could never get down. You could never get the voice. Yeah, you're giving up. Not very funny, silly. I just can't do it. I could never do it.
Okay.
So
that was good.
I don't do as many now. I really don't. If I do them, I put them into a routine. A song. I've got a song at the moment called "I Hear Voices and They're in My Head. I hear voices, some of them are dead." And I put them, so I do all the voices, quick fire stuff. So I do that more now than actually main voices, and then I've got my own stand-up stuff now I do, which is in my own voice, which is good.
Yeah, well, it doesn't just stop at the impressions or the singing and the comedy. Doing pantomime, which you've done for many years, but you've done 20 years at the King's Theatre in Edinburgh. That's got to be some sort of record. What do you love about panto, Alan?
Well, I did panto, as I say, for years. I was Buttons, or I was Jack, or I was Aladdin, all of these parts, or more so the comedy parts, Wishy Washy, all these ones.
Yeah.
But when I changed over in '97 to Dame,
Right.
I found my feet in panto. That was a magic moment. Now I was lucky because back in the early 70s when I did my series, the director said, you've got to find your own characters. So I come up with 3 characters. One was my cousin Simon. One was the club owner, who's just a character, a Glasgow club concert section
Okay.
character. And the third one was my Auntie May.
Auntie May Stomp, yeah.
Auntie May Stomp. So Auntie May is the woman that I created in the early 70s. So when it was time to become Dame, it was just Auntie May. Auntie May became my Dame, and it was a really easy transition. She's different from English dames. We've got a bit of a tradition in Scotland of dames being men, but actually playing them as women,
Yes,
rather than
yeah.
just a man in a frock or a drag act. So Auntie May, I mean, a lot of the kids just can't figure out when I say hello at the stage door to them that it's me.
Oh, really?
That old woman on the stage. So it was great. The first panto I did was with Max Boyce, and that was the first one I did as Dame in King's in Edinburgh. And then after that, I moved to the top of the bill, and then I've been there for 22 years now, playing Auntie May and saying the same things over and over again.
Yeah, but 22 years, that's incredible. It must be really hard this year. I know it's for a lot of my friends in panto when you've taken a year out, basically, and there's no Or do you have any news at all about your panto, about maybe going in Easter?
It was officially cancelled 2 weeks ago. On the 1st of August, 3 weeks ago, 1st of August, Kudos, who put all the pantos on, said that is their deadline. We cannot go any further.
Preparations.
We are hoping that social distancing stops and theatres open up, because there might be something in the pipeline if that happens. But until the government allow theatres to open under normal circumstances, then nothing will happen till
Yeah, of
next
course.
year. So it is definitely a blow, and I just can't. My head cannot get around the fact that I'll be sitting at home this year.
Strange, isn't it?
I just don't know. I don't know what I'll do. It'll be
Yeah.
really. I've managed to handle everything else pretty much. Said, well, 2020's gone. That's all there is to it. But the fact that there's no pantomime is really starting to hit me.
Because it builds up, doesn't it, to the end of the year, and you look forward to ending your year on this big production, and it's not there. So yeah, and then we have to normally start again, or you go on holiday after panto, go straight on a cruise mid-January, and
exactly. Yeah, it's a whole routine. You know, I finish middle of January. It's an 8-week run, so it's a big long run.
Nice.
2 days, and it's knackering. So I finish. I go off to LA for about 2 weeks. I come back, and then I put together my big variety show. That's been doing that for 6 years now. And funnily enough, I just finished it. My big variety show was the last show that the Kings did before we closed down.
Oh, was that your last?
Saturday, and the lockdown started on the Monday, so I got it in just no more. Very lucky.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the big variety show. It's your passion about putting on show for the audiences and shows that they want to see, which is live and really funny talent. And you use all your friends doing that, and you know how to put on a show. Seeing your history and experience, and I'm sure it sells out every time you do it. I've heard that it does.
We do a week there, and
wow!
I tried it out for 3 nights. Then it got 4, then 5. Then we put matinees in, and we do absolutely incredible business. But it's obviously it gets harder and harder every year. The first 2 or 3 years, I just used the material that I built up over. You know, if you were on the ships, you needed 2 55-minute shows, so that's a lot of material.
Yes.
So I just used that. But then it got to show year 4, run out of material. Year 5, and last year's was the hardest. But we got through it. We wrote a load of new stuff, and the 2 guys I worked with, Andy Gray and Grant Stott, we work really well together. It's a bit like a crazy gang type thing.
Yeah.
We almost get away with just having a laugh on stage. We take a piss out of each other.
That's nice.
And wind each other up and all that sort of thing. So it really works well for us.
It's good to have that teamwork, isn't it? I've got a finale for you, actually, next time you do it. Captain Tom, you need to get him on in the finale and then do your song. You're definitely there, isn't it?
Well, we'll do business. If we can get Captain Tom on the bill, that's definitely going to get a bit of business, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing that you did there.
Oh, conversational.
The last thing I listened to before we came on the call was actually watching the video that you made for the tribute to Captain Tom. It's such perfect timing, the perfect acknowledgement of possibly the most positive memory that we've had in this awful time that we're going through. But it pulled on the heartstrings, didn't it? It's just such a perfect thing.
It was a funny reaction. I mean, when I looked at it and the parody came to my mind, I went out and walked. We've got this garden that we live on, a massive 3-acre garden, not mine, it's a communal garden, and I walk around there every day, and that's where I write most of my stuff, that's where I learn stuff. And I walked around and I thought, wonder if there's a parody to this, and it came to, by the time I'd finished my walk, I had written it, I'd put it on my phone, and I went up to my son's got a recording studio, and I said, let's just try this. And we found a track that was the exact track that David Bowie had used, and within 2 hours I had it done. I phoned my video guy and I said, can you come up with something? Within 6 hours, he'd come up with it.
You're joking, same day?
We had it out that day. It was an incredible...
Oh, that's brilliant.
It was like all the ducks in a row sort of thing.
Yeah, and that came from you walking around your garden, but you didn't get 23 million for it.
No.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's brilliant. I applaud you for doing that. It was such a beautiful thing, and I shared it at the time, and I'll do it again. It's a great song.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
I think David Bowie would have acknowledged that.
Well,
He loved it.
Then once we decided to put it out as a charity single, I had to jump through hoops to get the publishing people to agree, and then David Bowie's estate had to agree. So I went through a hell of a lot of work, and actually, because it took so long to get the second one together and get it out, I missed the boat, because the minute that he became Sir and it was his birthday,
right,
the whole thing just died. It was no more in the news. So I kind of missed the boat as far as the charity single gone. If I'd got it out right at the beginning, I think we could have had a lot. We could have had it. We could have given Michael Ball a run for his money with that.
Yeah, I prefer yours. Yeah. Well, I was the same. I think I come up with this song. I wrote this song called "To Me to Peter," and me and my wife done. My wife sang on it, and she sang a duet with my dummy, and we're singing about social distancing. And then when they changed it to 1 meter, I rewrote the words to 1 meter Rita. So Peter and Rita's married now. So
that's nice. That's lovely.
yeah, but again, it's getting it out there or missing the boat, you know. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about songwriting, and your son David Stewart is an incredible songwriter. Do you want to tell me a bit more about your talented family?
I'm now living my pop dream vicariously through my son and my daughter. My daughter, she's 25, and from about the age of 20, she was signed to Warner. She had a couple of big hits, and she's now taken a whole different route as far as her music goes. She's become R&B, and America's very interested in her. She's got a new manager in America, so she's now kind of starting again. Great. But David started as a drummer, as I did. Then he went on to guitar, as I did, and he was an example, which was a big hit band for about 3 years, toured the world with him, and then decided to go on his own. And when he moved over completely to producing and writing, that was about 10 years ago, it's just been a hard slog for me. We would get up in the morning and just write all day, all night.
That's good passion, yeah.
Did nothing but think about music and listen to it, and had different managers, and that fell through, and went to Atlanta, that fell through, and then eventually got this new manager in Los Angeles, a big record producer as well. And all of a sudden, bang, out comes Jonas Brothers, which was a number one, and this one, it wasn't a number one in the Billboard. We got to about number 10. But this is going to be, touch wood, all things equal, by Tuesday will be a Billboard number one. So wow, he's very, very excited.
Oh, you must be so proud of both of them. That's
I'm absolutely
incredible.
knocked out by it. I mean, it's wonderful to see the success he's having, and to be buzzed by it, because he phones up every day. You know, the video for this song has hit 280 million.
No,
in 3
it's
days.
the dynamite for K-pop, is it? BTS?
Dynamite, yeah.
Wow.
BTS.
Well,
so the
so
phone's ringing off the hook for him. Everybody looking for him at the moment.
Oh,
Right stuff. It's right
brilliant.
stuff. It's fantastic.
that's great to hear. Well, you've passed on a great gene there. I really have.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you're in that great, incredibly talented all-rounders like Joe Pasquale, Bradley Walsh, Bobby Daffro, Brian Conley, and you also joined Jolson the musical on tour. What was that like going into Jolson? Incredible production.
Well, it all happened, funnily enough, round about the time in Blackpool when I was doing the Blackpool Grand
Right.
in '95, and Brian was in London with Jolson, and it was a terrible, heavy show to do vocal-wise, and he was struggling. So they came to me and they said, "Would you like to do the part?" So they gave me a night off in Blackpool, and I come down to London, watched the show, and I said, "I can't do this." So my wife said, "Yes, you can." I said, "I can't do it." I said, "There's no way I can learn these lines because I'm terrible learning lines." She said, "You can do it." So we came back, and there was a lot of messing around. The director wasn't sure whether it was right. Went on and on and on. 6 months later, the director was sitting in the audience at the Royal Variety. I did the Royal Variety that year from the Dominion, and I came out,
Wow.
and it was one of those magic nights. Just went pow.
Yeah.
And he was in the audience and said, "Yes, you can do it." So they came back to me after that and said, "Okay, right, you've got the parts." And I then spent every day for 5 weeks with the director, the choreographer, and a piano player, and they just slowly taught me the musical. But it was my wife that really got me through it every single night. That poor woman had to sit
No.
and go over the lines with me. She was incredible, absolutely incredible.
Oh, that's great. Every good man, they say, don't they?
I went into it, and I think it was the scariest moment of my life, because as you walked on the stage, you then literally didn't come off until 2.5 hours later.
Wow.
And,
That is just such a pressure on the vocals, isn't it?
the pressure
Like you
was,
say.
well, the pressure was so bad, I lost my voice, actually. I lost my voice initially for about 4 or 5 days, because I took over from Brian. Brian went off for a month, and I took over, and I'd only been doing it a month, and I lost my voice. So then I got it back, and we fought to get more monitors and more fallback to help us. And then when we finished the show, by that time my voice was gone. My vocal cords were bruised, and I had lost the whole top end of my voice. I couldn't sing. So I struggled for 6 months with specialists and steaming and lessons
that's
and everything.
hard.
At one point thought maybe an operation, but I got over it, thank God. And when we went to do it again in Canada, we had the best sound system I've ever heard. That it made it easy. So it was actually the sound system that did Brian and myself in. It was a terribly difficult show to do, though, but most enjoyable thing ever.
Ice and Teeth.
You've been in a lot of productions, like the producers as well. You've worked for the producers, and that was with Joe, was it?
I was in New York. Ross King and Ross is my big mate from Good Morning Britain.
He's a great guy, Ross. Nice guy.
Yeah, Ross is lovely. So Ross and I went to see it in Broadway, and he said, "You fancy this?" I said, "Well, I don't fancy the lead." I said, I fancy Roger Debris, because it was just a man in a frock." And I did that. Got the chance to do that on tour again with Joe Pasquale, funnily enough.
Yes, wow.
And it was a wonderful part. I'd say probably the most perfect part ever. And I went to dinner with Michael Harrison in the Delaunay in London about 3 years ago, when he was doing the Young Frankenstein.
Okay.
So he was working with Mel Brooks.
Yes.
So we're sitting having dinner, and in walks Mel Brooks. So Michael said, "Oh, come and join us." So Mel Brooks said, "Fine." So I was sitting at dinner with Mel Brooks, like the greatest genius in comedy ever.
Yeah, wow.
And Michael introduces me and said, "Well, this is Allan Stewart. He played Roger Debris." So he goes, "Oh, wow, Allan, that's my favourite part. That's the part that I enjoyed writing the most. What a wonderful part." And he talked to me, and all of a sudden I wasn't just Fred Bloggs sitting next to him. I was the guy who had played one of his parts.
His parts,
so
yeah.
It was a great great time to sit there with him. And there was this moment where I said to him, I used to love that bit where, dressed as Hitler, I sat at the side of the stage with my legs dangling. I said, and I just ad-libbed for about 3 or 4 minutes. He said, "You what?" I said, "I just ad-libbed for 3 or 4 minutes."
Oops.
He said, "Nobody fucking ad-libs on my show. You fucking ad-libbed? You dumb."
Wow.
Totally, I believed him, you know.
Yeah.
And his manager looked at me and said, "He's winding you up, Alan. He's winding you up."
Oh, that's a lovely story, that. That's nice. Can you tell me just a little bit about your collaboration with Andy Gray and Grant Stott? Because you've done Canned Laughter, you've done quite a few productions with those guys.
Yeah, a guy called Ed Curtis, who is our director in Panto, we wrote Canned Laughter together. He kind of did the whole structure and the serious parts, and it gave me a great chance to go back over all the clubland life, because the Canned Laughter was about a trio, an act called We Three, who start working in the social clubs in Scotland in the 70s. So I could put little old routines that I used to come from the 70s that you got away with then, you wouldn't go away with now. And we did that together. Then we'd be in the dressing room and you would see this whole group evolve. And it was actually my career that we put into this story, because it then we got the chance to go to Manchester Golden Castle, where Alec Fine comes up to see us, which was my story, and he sees the act and puts us on the Palladium. So then the next scene is us on the Palladium stage doing a routine, and it goes through like that until eventually one of them becomes a drunk and leaves the group, and the other one falls out with me, and we go from being the biggest double act like Cannon and Ball to just me and my own, and I'm the only one that's left in the business, and that's where the play finishes, me doing a little bit of my act and my old partner coming back to see me. It was a fantastic thing, because any 3 people could do it if they've got the mindset that they know the 70s and the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, and the best time.
We all lived
yeah.
through it, and I think, if we had taken on to other comedians, it would have been a great vehicle for a lot of different actors to do this. But we never got it any further than we did about 10 weeks on tour, and it was lovely. We enjoyed it, but it hasn't gone any further since then.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. When I saw recently Les Dennis do Jigsy online.
Yes, I watched that on YouTube the other day there.
Yeah, I did. That was a nice piece.
That's definitely the same feel. That backstage dressing room situation that only us acts know and understand what it's like.
Yes.
And that's actually what my play is about, because it's me as a dame in my dressing room with my dresser. Now, my dresser and I have been together for about 15 years.
Right.
She knows everything about me. She knows what I look like with no clothes on. She knows all the little ins and outs, and that's what I've written, is our life on stage. Now, the only clash is that there's obviously the famous dresser, which was it Laurence Olivier? I'm not sure who did it, but it was the gay dresser and the act. But it's a much more miserable type of play. It's much more heavy. This is very light-hearted. It's me as a dame backstage talking about my life, and also she's bouncing off me. So that's what the new play's about.
Oh, that's brilliant. It also reminds me of something I saw recently, and someone said I should watch this. I don't know if you've seen Inside Number 9. It's a very dark comedy, like from the guys of League of Gentlemen, Steve Pemberton.
Yes, I have.
And
Fantastic.
have you seen Bernie Clifton's dressing room? It's another,
Yes.
Isn't it great?
They're both fabulous, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I loved that when he was talking about all of those days of them working together, and then at the end he was a ghost. It was so a bit of a spoiler there for those not seen it.
No, I've seen it. Well, ours was a ghost. Grant played a ghost, but you didn't know he was the ghost until you realised that he died from drink, and that was him talking to us. But it was only. You only every so often think, well, why is he sitting there and nobody's talking to him? But it was actually the ghost watching us talking to each other. So it was another nice little ploy that we had.
That is, yeah, that's amazing. No, the cruise ships have become Broadway or the West End of the seas. The quality of entertainers completely 5-star, aren't they? And do you enjoy doing the cruise ships? Because the rooms you get to work is incredible.
I do. Well, I started way back in 1971 on the QE2. It was only 2 years old at that time, and I was just a young kid, and I had started. My very first ship was the Countess Cunard, so it was only Cunard I ever worked with. The QE2 was my dream at that point.
Yeah.
So whenever I started on television, I still never gave up the ships. Every chance I got, I would go on the QE, and it was just, as I say, it was one of the greatest ships in the world. In fact, there was a wonderful documentary about the ship now out in Dubai.
In Dubai, yeah.
Did you ever work the QE2?
It is, and I always tell people this, it's the most favourite ship I ever worked. I love the ambience of it. It was stunning. It cruised perfectly, and I done the last, it was the penultimate cruise, the last trip from Southampton to New York with Dave Evans, and it was incredible. I done it twice, and I loved it on there. It's so nice.
Well, I did it through all its incarnations. It was called the Double Down Room, was the cabaret room, and the shops were up above.
Yeah.
But at one time, it was almost like a shopping mall at the beginning, and then they made it into more of a cabaret room. Then they put stairs in, and then they took away a spiral staircase. They just kept changing it every 2 or 3 years, but never ever really got it as a good room. It was never right. It was never meant for cabaret.
No.
It was meant for the big dance hall, really.
Yeah.
And it was a hard room to work, because people were using it to walk through, and they were passing through, so they didn't really into the fact that they were supposed to be sitting there watching a show.
Yeah, you couldn't build up to the show, could you? Because it was, you said, hang on, I just need to go and get a handbag. Oh, hang on, what's going on down there?
Exactly. But in saying that, I've got so many incredible memories. In fact, so much so when I saw the documentary, I said to Jane, we've just got to go over and spend a couple of nights there, because I've got so many memories of it. It was, I did World Cruise. At that time, I'd go on for 4 or 5 weeks at a time. I mean, now, you're lucky if you can get me on for more than 3 days. I can't stand being on the ship any longer than I have to be.
No.
Get me out.
No, you need to be writing something. I mean, you used to use it to your advantage and write a play or write a song or something. And I do. I'm writing a book at the moment, so I use cruise ships the last couple of years to actually sit down and spend a week writing. And there's paper all over the floor, and you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I wrote 2 books while I was on the ships.
Oh,
they
great.
were on the computer. They didn't come out, and I didn't do anything with them, but I really, really enjoyed the process.
Are they going to come out at any point?
I doubt it very much. I wrote a book last year. A woman came to me from the Wee Book Company, and she said, I've watched you years and years and years in the Panto, and she said, I think you've got a book in you. Auntie May's got a book in her. I said, well, I don't know. Anyway, we talked 3 or 4 meetings, and eventually we come up with an idea, Auntie May's problem page. So we called it Dear Auntie May. And what I've basically done is people supposedly writing in to ask Auntie May about their problems. But what I've done is just taken every gag I can think of and made it into a problem. It turned out really nice, a really lovely little book. I'm very proud of it, because she then said to me, well, we'll get people to illustrate it. And we had about 3 or 4 different people try. And I said, no, I think it should look like this. And I did a little drawing. She said, I love it. Right, you do it. So I illustrated it as well. Even though I didn't think I could draw. So
Brilliant.
So that came out last Christmas, and we sold it in the Panto, and it did really well. But it's in bookshops and things like that. But that was something else I didn't think I'd ever do. Somebody just needs somebody to have a little bit of faith in you, and all of a sudden you can do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you've got some lovely moments in the cruises that you write for the moment, don't you? Like your Bohemian Rhapsody, but in a cruise ship parody goes down a storm on there.
I remember the first night I did that. I had to do it in the next show 3 nights later. Everyone said that was unbelievable, and that was the best reaction I'd ever had to a song. Because as you know, on the ships, if you do something that happened that day, or if you do visual comedy, not visual comedy,
topical,
observational comedy, then they absolutely love that, because they've seen it, but they didn't see the funny side of it. Yeah. So I do an awful lot of stuff now that's to do with the ship, my own material that I've built up over the years, and that's the part of the act that I enjoy the most. Is just at the end of the show doing about 10, 15 minutes of stand-up about the ship.
Ah, that's brilliant. Yeah, originality seems to be your winning formula, Alan. You've got a medley of big ends of shows as well, and it shows off your vocal range where you end on classic parts of the song.
You've done your homework for this.
I admire people I'm talking to, and I really love your work. So what you're doing, you are original, and I love that within a performer. It's brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell me the first time you got a call for the Royal Variety Show?
Well, I had done a couple of little cameo spots. One was I did Harry Lauder in this Scottish scene. David Bell had booked me for that, funnily enough.
Okay.
And I did another spot, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was in part of Copycats or something.
Right.
Airport, I can't remember. But then when I was doing again from that Blackpool show with Joe Pasquale in '95, the Royal Variety people come up. John K. Cooper come up to see me. And the show was so spectacular. It was the last big variety show of its kind at the Grand. There was 12 dancers,
Yeah.
musicians. It was a massive show.
So
and
good.
It really showed me off to my best. And they put me on the Royal Variety that year. So that was '95 I did it. That was again an incredible. I was first on, so that was really scary. Des O'Connor introduced me, and I got a big roar with my Michael Jackson St. George Formby. And once I got that roar, I was off and running. I did Billy Connolly. I did the Bouquet resident lady of the house speaking. Mrs. What's her name? I can't remember.
Miss Bouquet.
Hyacinth Bouquet.
Hyacinth, yeah.
And then I did Bob Geldof, and then finished with Barcelona. Doing Freddie Mercury and the duet, doing the two voices.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I remember I saw that show with Joe Pasquale and yourself, and it was an incredible variety show. I remember it. And then the Royal Variety, I saw you that year. It was just mind-blowing.
Well, I haven't got that, and I looked through some old. I had a lot of my VHSs changed over to DVDs about 3-4 years ago, and I thought I had it, but I don't have it, and I'm really annoyed I haven't got it.
Oh, conclusion.
If you do another Royal Variety, you really have to do the face guitar that you did. I love that. I saw that today.
That'd be great. I've got to find it again because it'd be great for TikTok.
Yeah, I think you can link. I think you can link a YouTube clip straight to TikTok. So I think, yeah, I think so. I think people do that, unless it's the other way around. But I'll have a little thing. But yeah, you should put that up there because it's a brilliant TikTok moment. That
it is. I think it's actually 31 seconds, and TikTok's 30, so I'll get away with it. I'll get it on there.
They'll just cut your 1 second smile out at the end. I think that's. But I mean, to pull off a bit of music like that, you have to have a great rubber face, not unlike Jim Carrey, to pull anything like that off. And it was genius. It was. That's the beauty of YouTube. Well, Alan, I wish you and your family all the best, mate, and I hope you're back on stage quicker than we hope.
All of us, please God.
Fingers crossed. And you're an extraordinary guy and talent.
Okay, that's brilliant. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Bye.
Ice and Steve.
Thank you, Alan, for a brilliant hour of stories. To discover more and keep up to date with Alan, go to his website, allanstewart.com, or Allan Stewart on Facebook, and at Alan May Stewart on Twitter. For performers to sit at home when they should be touring theatres, flying around the world on ships, or donning tights for this season's pantomime, it breaks your heart to think a year was wasted. But then this is also a year we can reflect, where we share special moments with our loved ones, our families, our closest friends, speaking to them on the phone or on Zoom. It's where we started to not take silly things for granted, but most of all take time to look back and be proud of what we've achieved. Today's quote or words of wisdom comes direct from Tommy Cooper. Here's an interview from Jersey TV back in 1983 with Tommy Cooper talking about actually dying on stage, which is what we call in the business dying on your backside, struggling on stage, no response from the audience. And this is his way of explaining it. The wonderful Tommy Cooper.
When you walk on stage, people, it's maybe the look on your face, the way you walk, straight away people are laughing. But have you ever died a death on stage in front of an audience?
Oh, yes, I have. Oh, yes. I won't tell you the name of the place, but I have died. And, oh, yes. And Oh dear, it's a terrible feeling, dying of death, you know. And I was there for a week, and they thought, there's a bad man there, 6'4", can't do a trick. They didn't realise I was burlesque. And they thought, he can't do a trick. The big fella, he should have done the mouth. You know what I mean?
I always think that anyone who appears in front of the public must have a fairly large ego. Now, you don't strike me as being a man that has an ego that needs to be fed. Am I wrong?
I suppose really, there must be a certain amount of ego for every performer to go on the stage, really. I mean, but I think, I really mean this, I think if you get that feeling that here I am, you get that, a cocky atmosphere, a cocky appearance, I think that is bad. You know, do you agree there?
I do, yes.
You know, because I think if you get a cocky attitude to yourself, I think it shows from the audience. They sense it more than you do. You know what I mean? So therefore, I never feel about it that way at all. I just go on and that's it, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Tommy Cooper. Always makes me smile just hearing his voice. Eyes and Teeth is written, produced and hosted by Steve Hewlett. That's me. Vocals by Rich T, Nina, Lola and Larissa Hewlett. The music and the Eyes and Teeth themed jingles are all thanks to the wonderful Kevin Dean from Pixieland. Join me next week where I'll be talking to stand-up comedian, author, pantomime director and writer, the excellent Phil Walker.